Good afternoon, folks. I want to welcome you all here to Wind & Weaponry's Facebook Live page. Don't forget to like and share it. First, I want to say, Wind & Weaponry's, sincere condolences to all of the victims in the Las Vegas shooting. Our thoughts and prayers go out to all you guys out there, and stay strong. What we're going to do today for you is we're going to show how to install a free float style handguard, one of our Wind & Weaponry brands. Low profile gas block, changing over your tele stock to a standard A2 style stock, and if we don't run out of time, we're going to show you how to install ambi safety into your lower receiver. So that being said, I'll let Matt take over from here. He's going to show you how to swap over your stock, and after that I will be taking over and show you how to put on your free float handguard. So here's Matt.
All right, hey everybody. So like Harvey said, we're doing a couple parts installs for you today on how to take things off, how to put things on without damaging your digits or the rifle or something like that. All the tools we'll be using today are available to purchase in our armorer's kits, with the exception of what we call a spud. It's what Harvey will use to hold the upper receiver and device. We have those made for us. They're for mass production purposes, but we do have a Delrin upper receiver block that uses the 2 pins that you can use for onesie-twosie type of barrel installs. So first thing I'll do is, we'll get going here, it's been a couple minutes. Take the firearm off. As you see, it's safe, unloaded. So I'll separate the upper receiver from the lower receiver. This is one of our SRC versions. SRC sight ready carbine, no front sight, no back sight, ready for your choice of optic. A lot of folks nowadays have an extra pair of flips or a red dot or a magnifying sight at home that you could put right on a new rifle like this. So SRC version, this happens to be a 7.62x39 caliber, but we do make this in 308, 223, 450 thumper and things like that. So we'll pass off to Alberta Harvey. So first thing I'll do is, into the vise, we've got what's called a lower receiver vise block. That just basically goes inside your magazine well, press your magazine release button, drop it in place, and it latches into one of these 2 grooves. It can be used upside down, right side up, doesn't really matter. Put that in there. We have we call it a push pin tool. It can be used to take out or push out your takedown and pivot pins. Has a hole in the end of the shaft for installing your pivot pin detent spring, which is kind of a pain to get into. They're way back in here. But in this case, I'm going to use it just for simply pressing your buffer retainer to allow the buffer to come forward like this, buffer and spring. So the buffer retainer is right here, this little tin can shaped gallon nipple on top. That's held captive by the buffer tube, so we'll cover that when I put the new stock in. But you simply just depress that with your finger or with a little small tool like this, and that relieves the tension, and the buffer and the spring just come right forward out of the tube itself. We'll set those aside. Next, we're going to loosen what's called the castle nut. Traditionally, several different names for it, but this armorer's wrench is a kind of a universal armorer's wrench. It can do your castle nut on the back side, barrel nut on the front, a square hole here for a 1/2 inch drive torque wrench, and you've got a 3/4 inch slot for a flash hider and a 5/8 inch for the back of an A2 buffer tube, which I'll be using in a couple seconds. So we'll just get these into the castle nut. Make sure you push forward as you do this. You don't want to slip out and end up with a nice little burr on the castle nut itself. Set that aside. Once you get it loose, it's really just hand tight is all you need to do. And if the camera comes around to the other side here, what I'll show you, as I loosen this castle nut, you can see this end plate kind of starting to pivot out, because right behind here is a spring and a detent which hold your takedown pin in place to keep it captive. So what I'll do is I'll just push in on the bottom of that as I loosen this castle nut all the way back, then slowly kind of wiggle this till it comes back, and then you can kind of see the spring kind of sticking out right there. Important not to lose that little guy. So then what we'll just do is we'll start turning counterclockwise. As you're doing this, take your thumb or finger and just press down on the buffer retainer because that's what happens if you don't do that in time. The buffer retainer and the spring itself are held captive by the end of the buffer tube. So usually you push down that so you back it off, and then you can let it go. Fortunately, they didn't go too far, so what I'm going to do is just put this in here like that. So you push on those as you're unscrewing the buffer tube. When it releases from the tube, you can let them go like this, like that. At this point, you simply just finish unscrewing and take your buttstock and tube assembly off of the lower receiver. And that's the extent of disassembly for taking the stock off of the rifle. So what we're going to do now is install a full-size A2 trapdoor style stock. First thing you do is grab your buffer tube. It's just simply screws right in the back of the lower receiver where the other tube came out of. You're going to screw it in until you kind of come almost to the end of the touching the contact in the side of this buffer retainer. Then just push down all the way and screw it all the way like that, and then you let up, and you can see that the end of the tube itself, right in here, rests on the shoulder of the buffer retainer, and that's what holds it captive. Then you can take this armorer's wrench that we have here, 5/8 inch slots on the back here, so you can use the 5/8 inch open end. Give that a little twist, make sure it's nice and snug, and that takes care of that. Give a little function test, make sure that moves freely up and down. Just gonna, you can use your finger, but do a little function, make sure that it's not binding up or anything like that, because if that sticks up, you can't get your buffer and spring back in the stock. So after that function test, you should be good. You would then take your A2 trapdoor buttstock. The butt plate itself will be held in place by 2 screws. A lower screw here, which also acts as your sling swivel screw as well. Kind of get that in first to get those 2 things lined up. Then you want to drop in what's called your A2 stock spacer. And it goes in, it's concave, and convex. The convex side goes in first, goes right in the tube of the stock itself like this. And that is so when you slide everything on, the concave portion is forward, and the convex portion of the buffer tube can seat right inside of that, just like this. All right, so again, put in just like that. Just slide all the way. This slides right on. Now what you have to do when you do this is be careful not to crimp that takedown pin detent spring. So if we come back around to the other side of the vise here, you can see, there you go. You can see right here with that buffer, I'm sorry, the takedown pin spring is sticking out right there. So what you want to be careful, you don't crimp that. So make sure it says in all the way, and then get it kind of touching, then just a quick little shove. Keep constant pressure on that. Take your screw, which goes in the top portion of the butt plate. Just put it in the back of the stock here. Grab your flat bladed screwdriver. Once you get that snugged up, a little start, and you just want to make sure, give a quick eyeball. Everything is nice and straight, which it looks to be. Maybe you have to come this way just a skosh. That should be pretty good. And then just tighten this up. Make sure you tighten your bottom screw as well. And these slots are fairly wide. So you want to get is a good size screwdriver that's has a fairly wide blade on it, so you get a good purchase on your screw head. So you don't, again, slip out of that with a burr or anything like that. And that's really about it. The last step is just to take your spring and your buffer. You drop your buffer in the spring just like this. Just compress it and twist, and you heard that click into place. If not, I'll just do it again, like this. Then you just feed the spring in. And give a little push at the end, and that will then push down in that buffer retainer, but then that pops back up as it clears and goes inside the stock. Function test there. Make sure then you can take it off here. One thing you want to do give your takedown pin a little bit of a twist to make sure that that didn't move while you took the stock off and before you got the new one on. If that did move, and you don't give a twist to have the detent drop back into the groove, you're gonna pull that out. It's come all right out of the rifle, and then you got things all off and start all over again. So quick twist on that, and it's not turning at all. So I know it's in there safe. I can pull it out. It's still captive. And there you go. That took about 5-7 minutes, going from an A2 a telescoping stock to an A2 trapdoor style. Any questions popping in yet? No. All right. Oh, while we're waiting for those to check on, I'll clean up my mess, and Harvey will come over and kind of run down how to take off, going from a 2-piece plastic handguard to a 1-piece free-floating handguard.
We have a question from a left-handed shooter. He's wondering, I'm a left-handed shooter trying to make my carbon fiber SR carbine more user-friendly. Can I switch out the trigger for a Trimony or other aftermarket? Can I add ambidextrous mag release safety and a BAD lever like Magpul to a carbon fiber lower receiver?
You can add in all those to that. The one thing I suggest though with the carbon fiber, I'm not familiar with the Timney triggers on the bottom of them. You just want to make sure that they're flat. I know some of them have screws on the bottom, and those screws over time can probably, if you don't put a plate down there, can wear into the carbon fiber. As far as the left-handed version, I would suggest you can get a brass deflector or a bag style catcher to put on there. The only other course of action you could take is actually taking out your pin ejector and taking a coil or two off of it. That'll take your empty casings from going from the 3 to 4 o'clock position more out to the 1 o'clock position. So they'll bounce out more forward versus coming back into your cheeks, which I've seen a lot of left-handed shooters come out with little half moons on their cheeks when they leave. Can't be fun. I'm right-handed, but that's okay. All right.
Anthony wanted to say that he loves our rifles. Thanks for going live with this. Carlos says hi. Shane says that he's hoping for no price changes.
We try not to change our prices, try and keep them flat across the boards, but keep your eye out for the sales. We do got a lot of sales going on right now, so it'd be good to keep an eye on those. Thanks all for saying hi and liking our products. All right. This is your standard SRC upper receiver. First thing we're going to do is take out your bolt carrier, charging handle, set those off to the side. We won't need those for a little bit. Then we're going to remove the handguards. See people struggle with them all the time, try to get them off there. They call. You can spend $20 and buy a tool if you'd like, which we do sell, by the way. But little ingenuity trick that we do here on the production floor is if you take the upper receiver, you've got nothing in there, take both hands onto your delta ring, push back with both your fingers, so you're squeezing back, tap it onto the table, it'll come right out. Just like that. I know I make it look easy, but years of practice, and so it will take a little effort to get that in there. To get that off there. So now we're down to just your gas block and your gas tube. So now we're going to remove the front sight gas block, which we have to actually push out your taper pins, and if you look, one side is smaller compared to the other side, so you always want to make sure that when you're pushing them out, you're laying it down. So I guess it would be the right side is down, and we have a little block here that you can put in, if I remember correctly which way to use it. This one, that'll work. Get your ball peen hammer and your 5/32 roll punch. These are all in our Armorer's kit, by the way. It comes pretty much complete of the Master's Armorer's kit. So now usually I'll start these with a 1/4 inch starret punch, but I don't have one here right now, so I'll just use this one. Give it a good firm hit. Might have to do it a couple times, and they'll break free. And then they fall right into your little holes there. Save those for later. Move that out of the way. One thing I forgot first before we can go any further. This is that spud that Matt was talking about, what this is designed to do is this piece right here enacts or reenacts the bolt itself that's in your carrier. So what that'll do is that keeps the barrel indexed properly to your upper receiver, so you don't get that barrel canting, I guess you want to say, because you get that little slot that's in the upper that's aluminum and the pin on the barrel, which is steel, and if you have to work it back and forth, you can get that to one side or the other. This will eliminate that issue. So we'll put that into the vise here. And as you can see, it slides, it's mated to the inside of the upper receiver. And so it's right on the same line. Just slide it on there. And we will use the armorer's wrench that Matt was showing earlier to use for the installation of the A2 stock tube, extension tube. Also removes your flash hydrant. Going to use the larger side. And remove that. Take that, and there's your crush washer. You're going to want to save that. Sometimes you can reuse the crush washer, sometimes you can't. Depends on how you time it on there and how it's going to look afterwards. But we will see if that will work again or not. If not, we'll have to get a new one. All right. Now we'll go back to removing the gas block. With the removing of the gas block, it's a 750 diameter at the barrel on the gas block right here. This dimension, you can see it's like 620 down here, and it's no, 740, sorry, take that back, and then 750 right there. Use a rubber or a plastic hammer. I like to use the plastic end on here to give it a good couple taps. Don't worry about damaging your handguard cap because we're going to be replacing of the free float, so if it does bend a little bit, you can bend it back into place. Give it a couple little taps, make sure it go around evenly. And it slides right off. You might scratch the barrel up a little bit, but most of that is just surface metal from the handguard cap onto the phosphate finish on the barrel. A lot of times that'll come right off. If not, you can take a little bit of super glue and touch it up real quick. We don't finish under the gas blocks on our barrels. We feel that it gives you a tighter fit. You don't have the sandblasting that goes on or the bead blasting that goes on for the finish process, so you get a tighter fit between your gas port and your gas block. All right, so we got that done. Now we're going to put it back onto the spud here. Because with this process, we have to remove the existing barrel nut. So again, we will use the GI wrench that comes with it. And on this, if you notice, it has two sides. You have a 3-prong side here, and then you have a side that has a little waffling teeth around there, which actually mates with the front part of your barrel nut. Has the star pattern on there. So a lot of times these little tabs will break off on the wrench if you're using the 3-prong side, so you can use the other side. I prefer to use the prong side, but I'm going to use the good side here just to show you. This, you kind of get it into place. Make sure you're all the way around and push in on it, and then relieve up, loosen it, then you can just remove it with your fingers. Whole thing comes off, just like that. Throw it in your extra parts box. And this is that indexing pin that I was showing you guys before. If you wanna, you got the indexing pin on the barrel, which is right there. And then it goes into the slot on the upper receiver. And that's what causes your canting on your front sight or your barrels being off a little bit. So you want to make sure that it goes in straight and you don't have movement back and forth with it. And that'll keep your indexing on there properly every time. We are installing one of our Wyndham Weaponry free float style handguards, which just requires, what size was that again? 5? An inch and 3/16 wrench, open head wrench or torque head wrench. We drilled all the holes into the barrel nut just to keep the weight light on it. The handguard itself, Matt's helping, he's taking the screws out for it. We prepped his side, we forgot to prep my side on this deal here. This is our M-lock style handguard, which you also have your quick detach slots for a QD sling pocket, or it has a QD sling pocket, sorry, take that back, embossed with the Winter Weaponry logo. And this is the actual area that will be clamping down on there. Just have your 2 screws. And this, I like this design because it has a little notch right there that goes on each side of your upper receiver, so it's indexed just about every time you put it on there properly. And you don't have to worry about indexing it to the barrel nut. So we will get that. So this is your barrel nut. Usually we put a little bit of oil or Tetra gun lube on there or something along that line just to loosen up the threads, but both of these parts are pretty oily, so we're just gonna go with it here. So, and these you don't have to worry about lining up all these little slots like you would for your individual gas tube. So I'll do it hand tight, and then we'll take our handy dandy torque wrench, which is you can set it 35 to 41 foot-pounds. This one's set at 30. Get it on there and a little more past there just to be safe. And then we'll take our handguard. Oh, we want to do the gas block first. Getting ahead of myself. Where was it? Can't forget the gas block. That would be a major no-no. All right. So now we'll remove the gas tube. Put that back on our block here to hold it up. And 16th punch. Push out the gas tube roll pin. Careful not to lose that. And I don't have a pair of pliers. So, what you can do is, if you don't have a pair of pliers, especially if your gun's really carboned up too, this is probably a good idea. Take your vise. You don't have to clamp it too tight. Just give it a little snug there. Take your hammer, just yeah, good thing we did that, because that was quite carboned up on that one, so good thing we did that. Take that out, give this a little quick wipe down, make sure there's no excess buildup on there. Yeah. Then if you notice, on here you get obviously your gas tube roll pin slot on there, and then your slot on the gas block itself. You're gonna slide that in there. Make sure your gas port is on the bottom. Slide it in, wiggle it in. Line them up so you can see through it right there. And we'll set it back on our block. Then we have a slave punch set that we sell as well that comes in the kit, in the armorer's kit. And this is designed for all of your different roll pins that you use and different sizes. This one's for your bolt catch. It's got a little notch so it goes over the lower receiver little area. Then you have your trigger guard roll pin, and then your 16th, no, your, what was this one for? Mag catch, bolt catch. Oh, your rear sight, A2 rear sight. That a lot of people don't have anymore. Same thing with this. This is your A2 rear sight spring tool that holds it up in there while you're putting the roll pin through. So we will take the small slave punch. All right, we're gonna go next size up. These haven't been used a lot, so they're pretty tight. Get it started in there just like that. And make sure your tube stays straight. Give it a couple little taps. Yeah, so that's started very good now. Take, where'd it go? 5 30-second punch. It's good for everything. Put it on the roll pin. and you want to make sure it stays flush with that side, and then you'll know it's in all the way on that side. So there, and your gas tube, and to make sure it's installed properly, if you can see the little rise in it right there, you want it to, always to go up. If it goes down, you get a single shot. So now we'll put our spud back into the vise. There. So we will take our gas block and where is, there we go. You're going to use 5 32nd Allen head on the two little set screws on the bottom. Just back those out. Get in there. And the thing with our gas block here, this one was designed that you don't have to worry about the space that you need to leave for your handguard cap. On the other one, when it's on the barrel, you got to leave that little bit of a thickness away from the little ridge here on the barrel, and in order to line up your gas tube holes. So this one takes all the guesswork right out of it. So now we're going to slide it on, and you're going to want to make sure it goes into your upper receiver, into the hole that's in the upper receiver for your gas tube. And then you gonna want to eyeball it, make sure it's straight, and you can tell the space between. You want equal space between here and then the upper receiver. It's kind of hard to see there with the lighting. So we'll tighten that down. And at this point, what I would do, even before we install the rest of the handguard, just to make sure that the gas ports line up with the tube, is actually take it out and put a couple rounds through it, just like this, just to make sure that everything is lined up properly, because you're going to have the handguard back on there, you're going to have your flash hider, just easier that way if you do have to take it off for some reason, you won't have all that excess stuff to take off. So now we got that. That's tightened down there. Gonna take your handguard, slide it down over, and that's where those two little notches on the handguard itself snap right into place. Line up your monorail. And we'll get our screws. One side the screw goes through, and the other side kind of holds it for the nut. So this is the screw side, and this is the nut side. Kind of has its own little wrench right in place. Get my finger out of the way once I get it started here. There we go. So you can see where the nut will kind of sit right into place there. Same thing on this side. And this is I'm not sure what size that is. I would say it looks like a 1/4 inch. Tighten that down. These you want to go probably 40 inch-pounds on. Which is just about hand tight and just a little bit more. So that's the handguard. Now we'll see if we can get the flash hider back on there. When installing your crush washer, one side is one side is concave and one side is convex, so you want the convex side going towards the barrel. So it kind of goes from the taper of the barrel to the thickness of the flash hider. So it kind of makes up that difference. So we got about a little more than halfway. So that that crush washer should still be good, because you want about 25 foot-pounds on installing this.
And you got 5 slots on here, so you can always take the middle slot. Kind of kneel down a little bit. Line it up. And there's your changeover from your standard handguard to a free float style handguard. Anything else? Any other questions on that?
No new questions lately, but thank you guys. Thanks Carlos, Kev, Shane, Anthony for tuning in, and everyone else who's watching us today. It's been a little more than 20 minutes, so we'll call it good for this. But again, thanks for tuning in. We might do some more of these little segments where we'll do a couple small installs like this that are commonly asked, and it's really a lot of stuff that a lot of guys at home with household tools are able to do. It's not rocket science. Harvey and I aren't the smartest guys in the world. We get by with it. So.
And what's the cost on that? You got the 2 kits. One's $199 for the deluxe, and then the masters is what, $200?
Yeah, you got the armorist kits. So we do have those that have the majority of these tools that are in the that we use today. They're both on our website or in our printed catalog. If you just search for armorist kit, it'll take you right to them. One is a little more inclusive than the other, but they're both a really good value for what you get. And many of our tools we use today are the tools that we use up on the shop floor making these guns every day.
And also, if you buy the handguard from us and you have the upper and you don't want to spend the money on the tools, give us a call. Customer service line, we'll set you up with a return number. It's free installation if you're buying the parts from us. You buy the part, or you call us, send in your upper receiver or your complete rifle. We take your credit card information and put it into the RMA. That way, we'll install it for you. Doesn't void your warranty if it's factory installed. And also, you're only paying shipping one way. That way, you're just paying shipping back to yourself. And actually, right now, if you do buy the handguard, it's over $49.99. It's free shipping back to you. So it's a kind of a win-win for you. Buy the part, send in your rifle, we install it for you, send it back, and it's all covered under warranty.
Very good.
Thank you, guys.
Right.
We'll see you soon.
Thanks, guys. See ya.